they've been sending us pictures nonstop, them skydiving, kayaking over waterfalls, hunting wild boar. That's a joke. Actually, those are things that I want to do, all right? I'm just jealous. I wish I was in Hawaii. Instead, I'm here, all right? It's going to rain. My grass looks terrible, all right? Praise God. I'm going to go on one of those real soon, all right, out to Hawaii. But we are glad for them. We're going to continue to pray for them and their safe return, but much needed rest for Pastor Bob and Debbie. So I'm going to get right into it this morning, if that's okay with you guys. Is that all right? Is that okay? Great. Perfect. All right. So we've been teaching a class lately here on Tuesday nights called Financial Peace. And it's this finance course through Dave Ramsey's company and all this. And one of the key things that he says in trying to shift the mindset of people when it comes to money, it says if you want something different, you must do something different. And it's a great mindset for finances because we go through life and everybody's always done it this way, so we think we have to do it this way. And it's his goal to try to break us out of that thought process. But as I was studying this week, I thought, man, what a great sentence in general for anything when it comes to do with church, okay? If you want something different, do something different. So this means if your situation isn't changing, maybe you should do something different, okay? If you're stuck in the same addiction, or maybe financially you still need that breakthrough, or the relationships that you are in are still ungodly and or toxic, or maybe you're still holding on to bitterness or anger, or you still feel broken and unworthy, or you continue to struggle and live in disbelief. Now, today, this service this morning is your opportunity to do something different. All right, I'm going to encourage you to stay put and do something about it, okay? Don't rush to leave. I want to encourage you, I want to challenge you to take time, spend some time with God, talk to God, maybe praise him a little bit this morning, maybe petition to him a little bit this morning, maybe confess to him a little bit this morning, because I promise you, he is here. His Spirit is in this place, and I know for a fact that my God is able. Okay, my God takes the broken and turns them into the blessed. My God takes the wretched and turns them into the righteous. I know that my God will take the bitter and the angry and turn them into the anointed, the degenerate into the delivered, the perverse into the pure. My God will take the worthless and have them be seen as worthy, and take the faithless to faithful, and thankfully, the most important of all, God will take the sinner and make them saved. All we have to do is do something about it. He is here. He is able. We do the ordinary, God will provide the extra. We do the natural, and God supplies the super. But we must take accountability, we must take control and do something about it. I had the privilege yesterday morning to go have coffee with a friend of mine, a guy that I don't get to see very often, and so we try to arrange these coffee dates, all right, every so often. All right, I'm not afraid to call meeting with my friend a coffee date. One, I love coffee, so any excuse to get some, that's awesome. And two, all right, he's my friend. We think a lot alike. We act a lot alike. Maybe that's good. Maybe that's bad. I don't know. But we really love getting together and talking. We talk about all kinds of stuff, church-related stuff, life stuff, problems that we're having, and after this coffee date was over, I'm driving home, and on the radio is K-Love. I normally don't listen to K-Love. I'm going to be honest. I'm not a K-Love listener, okay? If I'm listening to the radio, it's probably a little bit of sports in the morning, or it's a baseball game, all right? I like to listen to the baseball games on the radio, but that's pretty much it. Otherwise, not much of a radio guy, but I was driving in Lauren's car, and Caleb was on, and, you know, men, we're too lazy to do stuff a lot of times, so I just left it on, all right? And you know, whatever, neither here nor there. And as I'm driving home, the DJ comes on, and he starts to tell the story about the time in his life when he had his very first flat tire on his own. He said he was 17 years old. He was driving in the streets of Tampa, and boom, he gets this flat. So he pulls over. This kind of dates the guy a little bit, but, you know, that's okay. Pulls over, finds a quarter, all right, walks to the nearest payphone, gives his dad a call. And he says, "Hey, Dad." And his dad's like, yeah, what's up, son? He said, hey, got some bad news. I got a flat tire, and I need some help. And his dad said, oh, you got a flat tire? Oh, son, that's unfortunate. That stinks. And he says, what do you want me to do about it? And his son was like, what do you mean, what do I want you to do? I want you to come and help me. I got a flat tire. I'm 17. I'm in Tampa Bay, all right? It's not like some rural town in backwoods Mississippi. This is like a busy place. I need some help, Dad. And his dad says to the DJ, he says, son, did I show you how to change a tire? Did I ever show you that? And the DJ says, well, yeah. We went over how to change a tire. And he said, okay, great. See you in a little bit. And then he hung up his phone, all right? Dad hung up on son and told him to figure it out. And the DJ was talking about, like, sometimes we have to teach our kids those hard lessons. Sometimes we just need to cut it off and the kids need to learn what to do. But it made me think about the message this morning, okay? God has given us the tools. He's showed us the directions. He's got, thankfully, an entire book that explains everything to us in great detail on what we need to do. He's given us these tools, but we need to get active and do something about it. If we want the situation to change, we've got to do something about it. If we want our flat tire to be the spare tire and drive home, we're going to have to take out the jack. We're going to have to undo the lug nuts. We're going to have to take the wheel off, put the new wheel on, reattach the lug nuts, and drive home, all right? God has provided us with the tools. He's told us what we need to do, but we need to take some action. And so this morning we're going to be talking about faithful through it all and having an active faith. I think I'm going to quickly regret forgetting my water, but we're going to see what happens if I start grasping for air. You'll know why. All right, so truth number one is don't bow to culture. Turn to your neighbor and say, don't bow. Don't bow to culture. All right, this morning we're going to be looking at a small portion of Daniel's life. Daniel was a prophet in the Old Testament, in the Old Testament, okay? And his story starts off with the Bible introducing him as being kidnapped, all right? Judah was just recently taken over by the Babylonians, and they came in and they went and searched for a bunch of what the Bible calls able-bodied, good-looking men, all right? And they took those guys and they put them in the king's court, and they decided, hey, we want to take these very capable Jewish people that we just conquered. We want to teach them our ways, and then they can come work for us here in Babylon. And during this training period, okay, these guys were living in the Babylonian palace. And part of this program was they were given the food and the drink that the king would partake in. So rations of the king's food, all right? And Daniel was given this as part of his training program, his learning regimen, but he refused to eat it. And you might say, Jesse, why would he refuse to eat this? This is the king's food. It's the best of the best A5 Wagyu that money can buy, the best wine that the king has. It's the greatest, side dishes. The perfectly Frenched fry is happening in the king's court. Why would Daniel refuse to eat this food? But according to Jewish tradition, this food was considered unclean. It was unclean. The food that the king had was used to make sacrifices to the Babylonian gods and not to the one true God. They committed sin over this food, and so Daniel knew that according to God, his law, that this food was unclean and he should not eat it. So Daniel refused to eat this food, all right? So we're going to look at Daniel 1, verse 8, and then we're going to jump down to 12. This is what the Bible says. It says, but Daniel was determined not to defile himself by eating the food and wine given to them by the king. He asked the chief of staff for permission to not eat these unacceptable foods. And then verse 12, Daniel says, please test us for 10 days. 10 days on a diet of vegetables and water, Daniel said. At the end of the 10 days, see how we look compared to the other young men who are eating the king's food. Then make your decision in light of what you see, And the attendant agreed to Daniel's suggestion and tested them for 10 days. So Daniel was put in a tough spot, right? He was essentially kidnapped by the king of Babylon and put directly into his line of sight. And Daniel's first impression with the king was, yeah, maybe you think this food is awesome, but I ain't eating it. I'm not eating it, right? And to the king, that doesn't make sense, right? This is a blessing. I've conquered you, your people, your land. I'm giving you an opportunity to look good, to come into my house, to eat my food. I will teach you, I will train you, and yet you are spitting in my face, rejecting the thing that I am trying to bless you with. Good food being rejected by Daniel. Just because his situation was bad, his situation was grim, his situation looked like he was forced to do a thing, didn't mean he had to bow to the culture. He didn't have to bow. So Daniel fasted. Daniel said, I'll eat only vegetables and water. Him and the three. I'm going to call him a three the lot during this message because it's a lot of names to say. All right. The three we know obviously as Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. And then their more common names, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Right. I don't know why they use their Babylonian names in the Bible instead of their Jewish names, but, that's how it goes. But I'm going to consider them the three, so I don't have to say their names all the time. But they fasted, just vegetables and water. And because of this fast, God gave him favor. He did something different and got something different. Would the meat have tasted a lot better? Yeah, probably. Would the cheese tasted a lot better than the vegetables? Yeah, probably. I can tell you right now, as a guy, I don't get very excited if someone brings out a giant plate of rabbit food and says, have at it. I look at it, I'm just like, there's too many colors. This looks like a crayon box. I need more browns. I need more dark yellows, all right? I need more butter. I need more eggs. I need more meat, all right? This vegetable stuff, I'll force it down. People tell me it's healthy, so I'll eat it because I have to, but I don't like it, all right? But Daniel chose to do this. He did something different and got something different. We don't have to bow to the culture, all right? There are thousands of influencers every day telling us what is good. They're trying to sell us something. Hey, this massager, it's the best massager in the world. Put it on your back, and all your back problems will go away for the rest of your life. Oh, you need to try such and such snack. This is the greatest snack ever. It's got extra protein and probiotics, and it's going to clear out your gut. Or all kinds of things they're trying to sell us. And then also influencers trying to tell us what opinions are good. Oh, I'm really famous. You should listen to this opinion on this important thing. That's definitely the right one. And then another one, a couple scrolls later. No, this is the important opinion you definitely should have. Everybody is trying to influence us and tell us what is good and what is right. We got a billion podcasts, all right? Too many podcasts. I'm not the type of person that, likes to make a bunch of laws, but I think we need to make a law. No more podcasts. There's enough. There's enough. If you can't find one to listen to, that's a you problem, okay? No more podcasts. But there's podcasts about relationships constantly, all kinds of relationships. We got these goofy manosphere podcasts where guys are talking about, this is how you be the proper man. This is the alpha male. Like, this is how you go and you get the best girl in the world. And then we got these girly relationship spill the tea podcasts where they're like saying the same thing, but it's from a girl, right? And all these things are totally messed up. They're totally backwards. But the culture is trying to tell us this is the right thing to do. We don't have to bow to the culture. All right? The world tells us that if there's trouble in our marriage at all, what are we supposed to do? Get a divorce. That's the advice from everyone around us. You're telling me the advice from the guy who's been married 6 times is to get another divorce? I don't think I'll take that advice. Thank you. You don't sound like you're very good at marriage. All right? Reddit. Okay, has anybody ever heard of Reddit? It's the worst place in the world outside of Disney over Christmas, okay? We went there one time. It was awful. Don't go. Orlando in December, terrible. But Reddit, second worst thing that's ever happened, okay? This is where all of the people who think they're smart but not actually smart put all of their opinions, all right? There are tons of marriage, like Reddit subreddits, and people put their advice in there, and somebody will have a post, and they'll say, I'm a female, I'm 45 years old, I've been married for 21 years, I have 4 beautiful children, I love my husband more than anything in the world, but sometimes he snores and it wakes me up. Does anybody have any advice? Top 500 comments, leave him, get a divorce, right? Because the culture is dumb. It's backward. It is wrong. They constantly tell us that the evil things are good, like destroying a marriage. You deserve to be happy all the time, no matter what. Zero accountability for you. You should never work on anything. They tell you that that's the good thing, but staying and working on it and fixing it and having compromise and praying through is the bad thing, because you don't deserve to have any suffering ever. All right? Maybe there's trouble at work and your boss is treating you like garbage. What does the world tell us to do? The world says, cuss him out and leave. That's exactly what you should be doing. You need to tell him exactly what you think. He deserves it because he's the bad person. You don't need to feel oppressed or taken advantage of ever. Cuss him out and leave. That's how we approach the trouble at work. And the world tells us that you've got some old trauma. Maybe one of your cousins back in 1997 told you one time during Thanksgiving, sweet potatoes, they ain't it. Sorry, Aunt Cindy, they're terrible. I'm never eating them ever again. And so what does Aunt Cindy do? Never, ever invite that guy back to Thanksgiving ever again, right? Because that bitterness and that anger and that hate that you're holding on to is totally necessary. You deserve to feel that way, and you should just cut that person out of your life. These are the things that the world is trying to tell us that is good. All right? Maybe you're dealing with an addiction, and what does the world say about our addictions? It says, hey, they're not addictions at all. What do we do? We change the language. We call that self-love, self-care, self-medication. You need to do those things. Otherwise, your mental health is not going to be good. They constantly call good things evil and celebrate the evil things as being good. We cannot bow to the culture. So what did Daniel say? Daniel said, I don't care about what the most important guy says. I don't care what the most famous girl says. I'm not bowing to the culture. I'm staying faithful to God. In a culture, in a life where everyone around you is constantly telling you that your religion is whack, that your attitude is totally strange, or that what you are doing is offensive, is people trying to tell you that the good is evil. We must not bow to the culture and stay faithful to God. So Daniel and the 3, after all this was complete, was found, get this, of just vegetables, to be more nourished and fatter of flesh, that's how the Bible puts it, fatter of flesh than every other guy in the group who was eating the king's food. Daniel did the ordinary. He went on a diet, and God made it extra. God allowed them to find favor in the king and look better than the guys eating the delicious food. Very delicious. Lots of steaks, probably. All right? The chapter then finishes by saying that Daniel and the 3 were actually 10 times more capable than every other man in the regiment, and they found, again, favor with the king. 10 times more capable. All right, so truth number 2, act in faith. Everybody say act in faith. Act in faith. I love calling these truths instead of points. All right, that's something that Pastor Bob started a while ago, and I thought, man, that is such a better word for all this, because the stuff that comes from the Bible that is spoken to us by God is not just a point, because somebody can make a wrong point, all right? Have you ever been in an argument? I know for me, all the arguments I've been in, I've always been the right one, and so my points have all been good, but sometimes people make the wrong point in an argument, and so I like this idea of truths, because things from God are capital T, truth, all right? But truth number 2, acting in faith. In Daniel chapter 2, and I'm going to shorten King Nebuchadnezzar's name too. I'm just going to call him King Neb, okay? I don't got time to say the whole name, all right? King Neb had a dream, all right? And he wanted this dream to be interpreted, and so he called on all of the wise men, the magicians, and enchanters of the realm. And he wanted them to not only interpret his dream, but actually tell him what the dream was. All right, he was not interested in playing games. He didn't want to divulge the dream and then all of the wise men make up an interpretation. He wanted them to figure out, hey, what was the dream and what does it mean? All right, so in Daniel chapter 2, verse 10 and 11, this is what it says. The astrologers replied to the king, no one on earth can tell the king his dream, and no king, however great and powerful, has ever asked such a thing of any magician, enchanter, or astrologer. Verse 11, keep this in mind, verse 11. The king's demand is impossible. Everybody say impossible. The king's demand is impossible. No one except the gods can tell you your dream, and they do not live here among the people. Sometimes the wrong people are right in the wrong ways, all right? The astrologers, the enchanters, the magicians, or the Chaldeans, as the Bible also says, they were right. This task was impossible for any man. All right, so King Neb was upset at this fact. He was been told multiple times, your request is impossible. So, of course, as any sane, regular king would do, he decided, well, I'll just kill all the wise men. All right, boom, new law, signed it into paper, kill all the wise men. Unfortunately, the wise men included Daniel. So when Daniel found out about this, he had a death note written about him. He went directly to the king and said, hey, I'll interpret your dream. Let's schedule a time, okay? In the ESV version of the Bible, it says that he actually went to the king and asked for an appointment, all right? Much like all of my white-collar friends constantly posting Teams meetings, all right? You send a little invite. It's, okay, can you RSVP to my meeting? I just need 30 minutes of your time. Please accept. Maybe it's tentative. Maybe you propose a new time. All right, this is what Daniel did. He went to the king and said, hey, schedule a meeting. Well, we'll get together. I'll have your dream for you, okay? And the fantastic thing about this is that Daniel acted in his faith, all right? There was a law to kill Daniel. He was supposed to be legally dead. So instead of running away, instead of hiding, instead of trying to make excuses, Daniel went directly to the king and says, I'll have that dream for you. Just give me a bit of time. And there's going to be problems in our lives that are going to require us to act in faith. Daniel acted as if he had the answer before he had the answer, all right? And sometimes that needs to be our attitude, all right? We're going to look in James chapter 2, verses 14 through 18 real quick, and this is some good stuff. Maybe it sounds complicated, but I promise you this is very simple. This is what James says. It says, what good is it, my brothers, if someone says he has faith but does not have works? Faith without action. Can that faith save him? Verse 15, if a brother or sister is poorly clothed and lacking in daily food, and one of you says to them, go in peace, be warmed and filled, without giving them the things needed for the body, what good is that? So also, faith by itself, if it does not have works, is dead. If we just say things, we just say we have faith, does it mean anything if we're not doing anything about our faith? And James is saying no. If we say we have faith, we deal with problems, and all we do is sit there and never do anything about it, is our faith really faith if we don't have the motivation to get up and do something about it? All right, so verse 18, but someone will say, you have faith and I have works. Show me your faith apart from your works, and I will show you my faith. This is the key part. I will show you my faith by my works. Works won't save you. We will never say that. It is absolutely impossible. Nobody in this room, doesn't matter how much money, how much skill, how talented you are, how good looking you are, you will never be able to do enough, to work enough to get your way into heaven. But our faith if it is true, if it is good faith, will produce works, will require action. We will be involved in our faith. Works won't save you, but faith comes accompanied by action. Our faith must be in action. Daniel had faith that God was going to deliver the answer before he even had it. He took action and went to the king. So then later in Daniel chapter 2, verses 27, 28, Daniel answered the king and said, "No wise men, enchanters, magicians, or astrologers can show to the king the mystery that the king has asked." All right? He's saying the exact same thing that the other wise men were saying, the magicians and the enchanters. They said, "Hey, we can't do this." Daniel is also saying, "We can't do this. I can't do this." But then, verse 28, here's the key. Get this morning. "But there is a God in heaven who reveals mysteries, and he has made known to King Nebuchadnezzar," or King Neb, "what will be in the latter days." We are not capable of the extra. It is impossible for us to achieve the super. That is all up to God. But the only way that we can change the ordinary to the extraordinary, or the natural into the supernatural, is if we take action in our faith. Daniel knows that he cannot do it, but he knows a God who can, a God in heaven that reveals the mysteries. So King Neb's dream, okay, Daniel comes back, he goes, he prays with the three, and he comes back and shares King Nebuchadnezzar's dream with him. And it's this dream of this giant statue, and he starts to work from the head down. He says, the statue, the head, is made of gold. Then the chest and the arms are made of silver. Then his midsection and his thighs are made of bronze, and his legs are made of iron, and then his feet are made of iron and clay. And then Daniel goes on to say, but then a rock is carved out from the side of a mountain, all right, and topples the statue. It is thrown at the feet of the statue, topples it. And he says that each of the metals on the statue represent a kingdom that exists throughout the world. But then the rock that crushes the feet of the statue and topples those kingdoms is a kingdom that is everlasting. A kingdom that will not run out, a kingdom that will reign forever. And the beautiful thing about this is a picture of Christ here in the Old Testament. How many know that Christ is the solid rock, right? That Christ is the rock on which we will build this church. And Daniel had interpreted this dream that King Nebuchadnezzar had, a guy that did not follow God. This guy was not a Christian. He was not somebody who even believed that there was a single God, and let alone this one in particular. And he had a dream showing the future of Christ, that Christ will be sent, knock down all the kingdoms of this world, knock down all of the culture that continues to bombard us, knock down all of the things preventing us from having a relationship with him, and he will be the rock on which we stand. Daniel had faith that God was going to deliver before he had it, delivered the dream, and it was a picture of Christ. He acted in his faith, and he did the natural so God could provide the super. So the last truth this morning that I've got for you guys is to be dangerous. Be dangerous. Being faithful through it all means being dangerous in your faith. Though Daniel was admired by many people, okay, later in his life, he had the favor of the king, actually the three kings. King Neb was the first one. His son, King Belshazzar, was the second. And then third was King Darius. All right. One of my favorite things about the Bible is you get these super complicated names. King Nebuchadnezzar. I would never name my kid that. King Belshazzar. Never naming my kid that. And then the next guy. His name's Darius. That's normal. All right. I have there's a musical equipment company called Sweetwater Music and Sound. They sell music equipment. I love musical equipment. I like to buy guitars. I like to buy guitar pedals or cables or strings or whatever. I buy all this stuff. So when you buy something from Sweetwater, you get a representative, somebody I could directly go to with my musical customer needs. His name, Darius. So I thought that was pretty cool, King Darius. All right, it's so odd when you find a very normal name followed by a couple of weird ones. But King Darius, okay, really liked Daniel. He had a lot of favor seen in Daniel, all right? But there's many other people who did not like Daniel. He was too famous for not being a Babylonian. This guy was not a part of the culture. This guy did not assimilate into what they thought and believed. He always did his own thing. He always stayed true to God. So there's a lot of people that were out to get Daniel, and they thought, man, we've got to figure out a way to get this guy off of his high horse. And they looked through his habits, his daily life, the things that he said, the things that he did, and they found absolutely nothing. Nada. Zilch. They could not find a blemish in Daniel's life. And so what did these people do? They decided, well, I'm going to petition the king and say, and essentially trick him into signing a law that says no one can pray to anybody for 30 days except for the king. The king is the only person that you can pray for. So Darius, tricked, signs this petition, signs this decree that nobody can pray except for to the king. Daniel found out about this law, and you'll never guess what Daniel did. In chapter 6, verse 10, it says, but when Daniel learned that the law had been signed, he went home, knelt down as usual in his upstairs room with his windows open toward Jerusalem. He prayed 3 times a day, just as he had always done, giving thanks to God. Daniel was dangerous. Daniel's faith was dangerous. Openly praying to God. Windows open, sun shining down, pointed toward Jerusalem, thinking in his prayer, probably, God, I hope they find me. Let them find me. I'm not stopping. His faith was dangerous. Active faith is going to require us to be faithful in hostile territory. When we're at our job surrounded by sinners and heathens, people who talk ways that we would never talk, people who do things in the business that we would never do, people who participate in activities after work that we would never participate in, we have to be faithful in hostile territory. We need to be bold and not back down. The enemy is going to whisper in your ear that we better not do that. That faith, that move of faith right there, it's probably going to be a distraction. You wouldn't want to get somebody else upset. You wouldn't want to bring attention to yourself, would you? Being this big, brash Christian, that doesn't seem like something God would like to do. He's going to be whispering in our ears, telling us that it's offensive if you try and do that. This is a true story. There was a woman in the UK who was praying outside. In her head, she wasn't talking. There was no noise. She just had her eyes closed on the corner of a street, and she was approached by a police officer. The police officer said, "Hey, what are you doing? Are you praying?" And the woman said, "Yeah, to myself." And then she was arrested and thrown in jail for prayer. Sometimes our faith is going to require us to be dangerous in hostile territory. It didn't matter. That woman probably knew that she was going to be arrested for this prayer, but yet she did it anyway because her relationship with God is more important, and what God can do in a few moments of prayer is more powerful and more effective than if we get thrown in jail for 50 years because we won't bow down to the culture. We need to be bold. We need to be dangerous. Daniel was thrown into the den of lions. He was arrested, thrown into this den of lions because that was the punishment for praying not to the king. And Daniel was a man who was faithful through it all. In the moment that he was thrown into this den, and the Bible says that a rock was placed over the entrance, again, it made me think about a picture of Christ. How they thought the den was for certain death. In here was lions. They were ready to tear apart anything that came in there, and they knew for a fact Daniel will die. And they rolled the stone over the entrance, just like they thought the grave was going to keep Christ forever, and they rolled that rock in front of that tomb. And they thought this will stop him. But yet God intervened. God came down, closed the mouths of the lion. Daniel was safe. He dealt with being in an unknown place, a captive after being conquered by a foreign land, and he didn't bow to the culture. Daniel dealt with a king demanding the impossible and trying to figure out a dream, and he acted as if God had already given him the answer. Daniel acted in boldness, and his faith was dangerous by not ceasing his prayers to God. All of this was anchored in his identity, in his relationship with God. He was faithful through it all. And most importantly, he had an active faith. If we're going to be faithful through it all, we need to totally and completely rely on Christ. There's no room for error. There's no avenue of our own version of what Christianity is. It is purely the relationship with Christ, purely faith in him and not faith in this world. So I encourage you this morning, let's everybody stand. We're going to take a little bit of time to praise him this morning, to worship him this morning. I encourage you, if you are struggling with something this morning, it doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter how long it's been happening. It doesn't matter how unimportant you may think it is. I promise you, God is here this morning to take away those things that are in your life, but we must do something about it. We must be active in our faith. We need to make a move. So this morning, as we sing, as we worship, I encourage you to take action. Whether that's coming up for prayer, maybe that's lifting your hands in your seat, maybe that's vocalizing your prayers to God this morning. I encourage you, take that time right now to do that this morning. We're going to pray, and then I ask you, if you need prayer, come up. God, we thank you this morning, God, for this opportunity to come together to hear your message this morning, God. And I pray right now, God, that we begin to be faithful through it all, God. No matter what is going on in the culture around us, we make a decision to not bow today, God. God, no matter what is happening around us, that we will continue to act in faith. We may not know the answer. We may not be confident in the path to even get there, God, but we are going to act like you have already provided us with the miracle, God. And God, I pray right now that each and every single person in this place begins to live their faith dangerously, God. God, I pray that we begin to live with a boldness. We begin to do things in your name, God, that we never thought that we were capable of, because we are being faithful through it all. We are being active in our faith. God, I pray right now that you just continue to bless us, God. You continue to be with us and to see us through all of our problems, our struggles, our issues, our relationships today, God. We thank you for these things. And everybody said, amen. If you need prayer, please come forward.